Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the walk. Yesterday, we left off with what the tallit was, what it represented, and what it would have meant when David reached out and he cut that tassel off of Saul's robe. Well, in the New Testament, that is kind of reversed, so to speak, in that moment where the woman who had the bleeding for 12 years manages to somehow get through the crowd thinking, if I could just touch that tassel, I will be healed of this bleeding. She had tried everything. She had been to every doctor that was known in that area. She had done everything she could to get rid of this bleeding. And she knew that the healing would happen through Jesus. She had faith in that healing. So we see this in several places. And one of those places is in Matthew chapter 9, verse 20, which says, "Behold, a woman who had suffered from a discharge of blood for 12 years came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment." And then in Luke 8:44, it says, "She came from behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased." And then in Matthew 14:36, they implored him that they might only touch the fringe of his garment, and as many as touched it were made well. In Mark 6:56, whenever he came in villages, cities, or countryside, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and implored him that they might touch even the fringe of his garment, and as many as touched it were made well. So think about what we've talked about the last few days. That fringe of that garment means authority. It means that you belong to God. And here you have God's Son wearing the prayer shawl. And the people are thinking to themselves, if we can just reach out and just get a small amount of his holiness, a small amount of his power, a small amount of his authority, then the healing is going to happen. As soon as this woman touched Jesus, he said, "Wait a minute, who touched me? I felt power come out of me." So that shows that that power flowed out of Jesus's body through that prayer shawl, down that fringe, into this woman's hand, and she was instantly healed. Now, I'm not going to say that Jesus didn't know that she was going to do this. I'm not going to say that Jesus didn't already know that she was there, because to do that would be to say that he was not fully God. However, in that moment, what he was expressing to these people is that his authority and his sonship was claimed by this woman. She proclaimed who he is, and that he had the authority and the sonship of being God's son to have that power to heal her. She was recognizing him for who he is. Now, in our lives, stop and think this through. How often do we not recognize who he is? How often do we push that fringe, that tassel, the offering of just the hem of his garment away because we'd rather be on our phone? Or how often do we do it because we have all these other things that we are taking care of? What this is pointing us to is the importance of spending that time in his presence. And, so many churches are calling out for revival, revival, revival. And they're telling people how to get to revival. The key to the revival is craving his presence. It is a move of the Holy Spirit when we enter into his presence. So go enjoy his presence. Go and enjoy the revival that can happen just within you when you take that time to spend it with God. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.